Okay, we're going to get going. My name is Jonathan Case. I'm an extension specialist in forestry and located at the center here. And like I mentioned earlier, trying to find. And one thing I've done in the past, I work a lot with landowners and other things, but did a lot of work with natural resource income enterprises, of which developing budgets for small enterprise budgets that could be easily used by someone to see if their enterprise is profitable. Just kind of using a year time frame, so people can get a quick once through to see if where they're coming out in terms of any profitability. We've done that on our website, and on my website it's basically this where this little green piece of paper is, extension.umd.edu/woodland. There's a whole series of natural resource income enterprise little 4 or 5 page fact sheets and downloadable Excel budgets. So I was kind of interested in trying to do one for Firewood. Of course, every Firewood operation is different. And I just worked with our farm management guy, just started on this. I just wanted to share this for about 5-8 minutes. And then the star attraction, who's Brian, is going to be here. And but just bear with me. I kind of handed this out to you. And what this is intended to kind of give you a really short glimpse at trying to identify what your costs, what your income sources are, what your expenses are. And I think this is so simplistic, and after you listen to Brian, you'll understand that.
Are there more copies in there?
There were passed around, yeah. I think there should be some more around. You'll find that there's a lot of ways to enhance this, but the idea was to say, assuming you were buying logs, okay, a triaxle load of logs, that you were going to cut and split into cords, all right? And assuming a triaxle is probably going to be average maybe around 7 cords of wood. So if you follow me up here, and assuming you're going to sell that for $200 a cord, all right, that gives you $1,400. And then the idea here is to identify what some of those expenses are in terms of the actual cost for the logs, as well as how many hours to labor to block it, in other words, to cut it into pieces, to split it. And this is using a 34-ton commercial splitter, okay, that you might buy for $3,000 or $4,000. And then the cost to deliver it, and some cost for fuel oil and so on, and repairs, transporting it, assuming about 25 miles. And then some things on chainsaw depreciation and splitter depreciation. And these budgets can be made up pretty simply, so that if you just change one of these numbers, the whole thing automatically changes. Assuming you're using the same framework of this triaxle or this group of 7 cords, but it can be adapted to that. So that's the value of these. And so just for this example, with any budget, you have to identify what your assumptions are. So the first one, like I said, is you're assuming that you're splitting wood and selling it to people for fireplace wood. And number 2, right here, is the delivered cost of the wood that you're selling. And again, that number can be changed. And number 3 here, the cost that you have to pay for logs, okay? So in this case, this person is assuming they're paying $650 to have that triaxle of logs delivered to their house. Now, the number's different, you can change it. And then, okay, number 4 is blocking a truckload. It takes about 5 hours. Now, this is assuming you want to pay yourself $15 an hour. So if you want to pay yourself, that's pretty bare minimum amount of money. So you can raise this to $20 or $25, and it'll automatically, pretty much, I mean, some of these things may have to be adjusted, but pretty much adjust everything to see what the profitability is. So you can actually change that hourly wage that you want to pay yourself. So number 5 is splitting labor, assuming it takes 2 hours to split a cord of wood, but with a 34-ton splitter. Does that sound reasonable to people? Is that high, low? Any idea?
That's pretty low.
Pretty low. Okay. Okay. See, again, that's what you can change. And then the delivery, the amount of time it's going to take you to deliver those cords, to different residences at $15 an hour. Number 7 is the fuel for the chainsaw and the splitter for that group of 7 cords, and trying to get an idea of what those costs are. How much oil does it take to split that much wood? These are very simple things, as well as assuming any repairs. And what we did was kind of assume a value per cord. So you kind of take all this over. You may do this over a year or whatever, how many cords of wood. And you can come up with a number that sounds reasonable. The same way that, how does the government come up with the idea that fuel mileage is 52 or 54 cents a mile? Well, it's based on the assumption that certain amount of insurance and, and all this depreciation of the vehicle and the cost of the fuel and all that stuff. So it's that same type of approach. And then number 11 is the depreciation of a chainsaw as well as a splitter here. But assuming a splitter is going to cost about $4,000 for a 34-ton splitter. But we're only assuming a depreciation on $2,000 because we figure you're probably going to sell the thing for $2,000 when it's done. That's just an assumption. You can change that and make this $4,000 over the life of 500 cords. Now, is 500 cords a reasonable time for that? I don't know. Again, that's a number you can change. So the point of this is that at $200 a cord, $1,400, you end up on those on that triaxle making $136. That's not a lot of money. Okay. Well, what happens when this is just taking the top part of that. So you have the $200, $1,400 total, making $136, about $19 a cord. What happens when you raise the price to $225? Of course, your profitability goes up, right? Still not a lot of money. What happens when you sell it for $150 a cord? You're losing money. Okay? So the value of this very simplistic budget is it just kind of gives you an idea of where you stand on some of these things. And just to kind of sum it up is that one of your major expenses is labor as well. It should say material. And one of the things you're going to hear from Brian is that, well, how do you get the most money out of that material? How do you get the most money out of that labor? Okay, because at a straight shot, buying wood, cutting it up, it's going to be tough to make a lot of money. So you'll make $15 an hour plus, $100 for every 7 cords of wood. Okay, I mean, you could, if that's okay, that's good. But and again, I think we've talked here today, and you've heard in the conversation that firewood becomes a real profitable enterprise when it's combined with another place where you have a source of waste wood. If you're a logger, wood you can use. If you're an arborist, if it's indeed wood that can be used for firewood, and those types of, or landscaper. So that's real value comes here, because if you take that, that $650 out of the equation, and it's just, and you're basically something you would have to pay tipping fees for, all of a sudden, that cost becomes an asset, okay? And time and mileage, this was mentioned, I know you mentioned that as well, can eat up a lot of your profits. Make sure you charge for that. And proper seasoning is important to develop a good customer base, and that's what Brian's going to talk about a lot, developing your customers, and how do you get this wood so you know money's coming in, you can plan out how much wood you need, a year ahead, especially if it's going to be dried. So